but they're doing well.
This is our computer vision panel, and I'm especially excited about this panel because of how optics and neuroscience come together in AR and VR and in applied ways that are just, it does seem like magic still. I think that's what's partially so fascinating about the field, is it seems like magic, how we can create projections of imagery with a wearable device or with image mapping or projection mapping, and have it match surfaces and be stable and even fool us to thinking that we are in an alternate reality. It's my pleasure. We have 15 minutes. We're going to have the panelists introduce themselves. I'm Tim. I'm with AR in Action, host organizer. And please, Samson from the start. Headline introductions, please.
Perfect. I'm Samson Timoner. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been in computer vision for 15, 20 years now. I run the Vision Meetup in Boston. My current company is all about helping people collaborate remotely. We take simple audio and video. We use machine learning, machine vision on top of it to augment the experience so that people can really get work done.
Awesome, Samson. My name is Carl Byers. I'm Chief Strategy Officer for Context Air. My background is about 30 years in virtual and augmented reality environments, synthetic stuff for aerospace and defense, virtual task trainers, as well as field-based decision and work support tools. Current company's Context Air. We're building an intelligent personal agent for field-based workers. The idea there is to understand your context, deliver information related to your context to you to help you get your job done better. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross Finman, co-founder and CEO of AR Spirit, and graduating PhD student out of CSAIL in robotic perception. So my company, AR Spirit, we do mobile augmented reality, so doing a full 3D augmented reality solution for your mobile phone so that developers can build off of it so they can make spaces more engaging.
To start out, I'm curious, you have this fusion of materials and computer science and neuroscience that come together in the optics field. Would you explore how what's fascinating you, and what are the big unanswered questions that you're trying to answer around either material science or computational science or neuroscience that impacts how we're innovating in the optics domain of AR?
That's a good one.
Okay,
so, all right, why not? You can jump in.
I'll go second.
So I'm going to kind of spin it away from optics a little bit in terms of the rawness of optics and camera technology, and more around what you do with that stuff. So one of the biggest challenges, particularly in AR, is true kind of recognition and tracking, and 3D SLAM and technologies like that, so that I can go anywhere in any lighting conditions, whether it's snow or sand or dirt, and actually recognize the equipment and recognize the systems that I'm working with. And I think that still represents a significant challenge. You'll see a lot of things that's still marker-based. You'll see a lot of things in relatively clean and sterile environments that work really good for AR. But if I take it out to the field where I start to get grease on things and I start to get some dust and fog flowing around, my ability to track, to register, to actually understand exactly where I am degrades really rapidly. So the technologies around that, which combine the 3D tracking, the 3D representation, as well as the technology around machine learning and understanding and recognition of systems and objects, I think needs a lot of work still for broad dissemination across the field.
I think there's an interesting tension between divorcing or how we untether and then how we add all this value with machine learning and AI that creates some tension. Please.
Yeah, so at least we're working on exactly that problem. So my advisor actually coined the term SLAM, or in his thesis he called it simultaneous mapping and localization, the small problem. Can't get a lot of grant money with the small problem, so they called it SLAM. So a little bit of marketing there back in the early 90s. But no, I completely agree. I view one of the fundamental challenges, and I just gave a talk at this in the other room, is how do you get, before it's been people adapting to computers. I view in AR, it's getting computers to adapt to the world. So then how do you do 3D modeling and scanning And we're just doing this on a mobile phone without any markers. So then how from a single two-dimensional image do you get back depth information and be able to build that all up in real time to have a full interactive augmented reality experience, which like we have full working demos, but then as you said, like if you have grease on something, as you have kind of snow in an environment, like in these changing environments, there's going to be a lot more development within there. But I view you can kind of break down what I view the future as. One is understanding the geometry, which is a lot of SLAM problems, kind of modeling the world, tracking yourself within there. Second is, okay, what are the different like objects and features that you need to kind of be aware of? And third, how does the digital content interact with it? And I view it probably will go in this 1, 2, 3 phase.
I'll add, machine vision has just undergone an amazing renaissance in the last 5 years. Right? It's very well timed for the augmented reality revolution. There are things that 5 years ago were just totally hopeless and today are very much doable. But that said, there's still a trade-off between robustness and computation and then capabilities, right? If you put those three things together, you're generally moving around in that triangle, trying to find something that will work. And in a mobile device, that's super, super hard to do. In the field, it's super, super hard to do. In my own space, just conference rooms, right? If you think about trying to make it work in everybody's conference room across the world, and nobody wants their video conference to break, that's quite a significant challenge. And so that trade-off is what we all try and work on.
And this question, I'll start out with Carl, and it's about situational awareness. In the DoD and military applications, and certainly in gaming, maintaining that situational awareness is vital to be able to support human-in-the-loop decision making. What are we learning about some of the bottlenecks of maintaining situational awareness in AR platforms or VR platforms that you've worked on, or others of you worked on the panel? So talk about bottlenecks in the human-in-the-loop in situational awareness and how we're breaking some of those down.
I think we're in many ways just beginning that process in AR. In the DoD world, they've begun years of simulation and federated distributed systems where you understand a ground truth and you know how to update things and deal with the lag time, so everybody actually has the shared situational awareness of systems regardless of where they might be physically on the planet. I think if you look at some of the things that are going on right now in AR, well, we're just beginning to put people in shared spaces, and so we're just beginning almost to kind of reinvent some of those problems or reinvent some of those solutions in some ways, saying what is a shared truth and how do you make sure, regardless of what device I'm operating on, I have a consistent representation of that shared truth, and the updates of the people and objects in my environment are being also represented effectively. So I think there's a lot to be learned from high-level architecture activities and distributed simulation development that we can transition over to AR. And my fear is we try to reinvent a lot of wheels that 20 years of experience has already solved. So I'd encourage people looking at shared spaces to really look at HLA and the standards around that have been involved, because there's a lot of applicability there.
Other thoughts? Thank you very much. Yeah.
We're still so early, right? How many AR devices are there, or glasses-based devices are there out there right now? I almost feel it would be a little bit hubristic for me to sit here and tell you I know exactly how things are going to work. There are a lot of lessons, and I suspect those lessons are going to be incredibly helpful. But I can't even tell you what things are going to look like in 2 or 3 years, or whether it's going to take 5 or 10 years for us to have everybody with a device at their office, or it's 2 years from now. There's going to be incredible demand. I don't know.
Sure. Well, thanks. The interesting element of wearable technologies and even mobile AR is that we have a new relationship with the eye, and there's new data about how eyes move and what this tells us about the user. Can you talk to us a little bit about how we're gaining new understanding and new perspective on user physiology, user behavior, user experience, in their interface with mobile AR or wearable-based AR. There are new data streams coming at us. What are they telling us, and what are some good questions about what they might tell us?
Like, one of the really interesting things about Pokemon Go, and it was just kind of a different way of viewing like what it is right now, like the camera and kind of a GPS are really kind of a computation device, and the human is the kind of motor vehicle that can like deliver it. So it's like we are the physical embodiment of the robot, and we're being led around by chasing little Pikachus everywhere. So it's kind of a different way of looking at the world. But then if you think about, okay, it's going to be this more, talking farther down the future, how the symbiotic relationship between like what your computer is telling you what to do, kind of where your attention is being taken towards. So right now, if you walk down the street, it may be some like flashy colors, some like advertisement that people trying to get it. Like what ads will be in the future with augmented reality are going to be a completely different kind of game-changing experience for how do people get your attention versus how does a sign get your attention. I view that there will be a kind of blending of both of those together as systems get farther down the line. But as was said before, it's really hard to say like what is going to be 2 to 3 years from now. I view like AR is kind of where computers were in the 70s and early 80s, where people were kind of making them, and okay, there's a couple places where this could be useful, but then, I mean, you couldn't even think about like the existence of, say, Facebook, Snapchat, and all these other kind of broadly, like hundreds of millions of people using it, so it's really early stage.
This is computer vision, so I'll focus on that for this panel. You know, if I rewind the clock, a couple of years ago, there was a little bit of work in gesture recognition. Now I've seen probably 30, 40 papers in the area, just to take a guess of what I've seen. I don't want to say it's a solved problem, but man, if it isn't solved, we're getting there really, really fast, right? The reverse, which is the eye tracking problem, I've seen probably 10, 11 eye tracking papers in the last year. How do we do it inexpensively, cleanly? So the data is coming in. I haven't seen anything new that we've learned, particularly about how people view the world. In fact, I'd almost say the opposite, which is neuropsychology has been around for a very long time, and people have done really expensive, long tests to figure out how people look at the world, and it doesn't really change when you move to an augmented device. Which I think is great news. It means we understand the problem, and we're not going to be meandering around for years. So I think the good news is we're not learning a lot. I think the even better news is we're learning how to do things really inexpensively and cost reduce it and put it in small devices.
So if I could just add to that. So I think the whole aspect of cognitive psychology and how we interpret things is actually something that when we look at highly immersive environments with particularly head-worn augmented reality displays, adds a layer of complexity to our cognitive processes. So queuing systems and information decluttering, stuff like that, becomes much more important because we're kind of these effectively direct injections into the eye and brain. So how that gets interpreted by our brains and how we declutter environments and improve the queuing systems, particularly around mission critical aspects. Yes, there's been a lot of research around it, but I think there's more and more stuff that needs to be done there, particularly when you're looking at close-in displays.
Sure,
right?
The question about how machine optics and machine vision and computational vision is being informed by our deeper understanding of the human model.
Exactly.
We have time just for one quick question. One quick question. Anyone? There's an unexpressed thought here. If not, okay, unexpressed thought.
So I just want to add that. So I come out of the flight simulation space, and I used to work in displays that were 360, look up and down. And the cluttering is really interesting. I'll just tell you one quick story about it. One of the guys that I knew who was a really good simulation expert and studied it, he showed that if you put enough stuff, right, it was a flight simulator, if you put enough stuff, the pilot would be sufficiently distracted that when he was landing the plane, he would actually fly directly through a plane. That is, he wouldn't see it. And I happened to be there one of the days where he was showing this test. And he's like, pilot, do you realize that you flew through a plane and effectively crashed? He's like, no, I didn't. I did not. And of course, then we replayed it back, and he flew directly through a plane. So it's interesting. All of those lessons actually still apply today, and they will when we put on augmented displays.
Thank you, panelists, very much. Thank you, audience.
Appreciate it.